So it's been really great listening to a lot of the themes that are going through today, and thanks to BizBash for creating this forum of finding out what's coming in the event industry. And we have found in the last couple of years that we've gone from really doing a lot of consumer work to a lot of B2B work, most probably because we're located in Silicon Valley. And in doing that, we find that companies that we're working with either are in a startup mentality or they so love the quality of the startup mentality that even though they're very established, they really like that sort of, drive behind the way that they approach business. And in learning about these cultures, we find that their planning sessions are shorter and we need to exact some process on them. So our talk today is really about the process that we exchange with our B2B clients.
Regardless of what side of the industry you're on, you probably face the same challenges we do. And realize that everybody has digital distractions, right? So you've got your Facebook, you've got Twitter, getting anybody's attention while they're in the room, let alone actually getting them to attend an event when you've got things like live stream, podcast, various things like that. So we really think about what we can do to create a really effective event. And so every project for us, it starts with this question: how do we create personalized human connections within that brand experience?
And one of the first things that we talk about is how do you establish a value proposition? So you would think that if you were going to invest into a large event that you would have a very clear value proposition. We find with a lot of our clients that the sales team and the product developers, they're working in complete silos. And really until closer to the event, they decide to reverse engineer a value proposition. And one of the things that we want to do is really hone in on that right away. September in San Francisco, you're competing with tons and tons of events. And it's great because people are back from summer holiday, but it's also really hard to get the attention of the audiences. And people have different things to do to establish a value proposition. You're really lucky if there's a product launch. You're really lucky if there's features and benefits to talk about. But if you just need to do your annual event or bring a sales team together to talk about the year and getting aligned and synced for what your goals are for the next year, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit more difficult to break through that clutter. So one of the first things that we hone in on with our clients is, do you really understand your value proposition? Have you vetted that through your senior leadership? And are we all aligned on those goals and objectives?
Yeah, a great example, one of our favorite tech clients that we love to work with, their goals are educate, inspire, and reward. So everything we do to build an event is done through that lens. And we look at really effective learning opportunities, maybe with different learning modules, ways that people might be able to take in information in slightly different ways. We look for ways for them to engage with each other. We find that when they talk and they get to meet colleagues in other parts of the world and other verticals, they're really inspired to do more work. And then, of course, you got to throw in a really exciting party because you got to reward them for all the work they're doing.
So a lot of people talk about the next thing we're going to discuss, know your audience. It seems like everybody in this room probably talks about know your audience. Well, people learn in different ways, and as David mentioned earlier this morning, he's an audio learner. People are very kinetic. We find that our developers love to break things and put them back apart, put them back together. And so, it's like they learn differently. So we want to create experiential learning modules and really understand our audience. And in doing that, we do a lot of things. We do audience mapping. We want to find out all the different constituencies of an audience and what they currently think, feel, and believe and what their care-abouts are. And then we want to track them through the tactical bridge of what we're investing in to care about a couple key takeaways. And we do that in a variety of ways. We do post and pre-event surveys. We do qualitative and quantitative listening. We do observation and auditing of the events that we're currently doing. But we essentially want to start with knowing as much as possible about the audience who's coming to our conference so that we can custom tailor these very high-touch events to not only what their care-abouts are, but the way that they learn.
Again, if anybody works in the Bay Area or you have a tech client, you know that most tech employees have awesome workspaces. Like, I would kill to work in one of these offices, right? And they're very proud of that. And so we look at, when we design event spaces, we want to help them mirror that experience. So when they bring their partners and their guests into an experience that we've designed, it's going to feel like you've just walked into their office. And so we look at things like interesting seating and a variety of different things. We even look as far as, what do they eat? One of our clients loves bacon. So we make sure that there's bacon on the menu.
Not one kind, but 4 kinds.
4 kinds, yes.
So finding your message is sort of the next piece in the puzzle. Once you understand your audience, then you need to understand what you want to say to them and how. And there's a lot of methodology behind this, like we're not inventing anything here, but we think this is a critical step in the process to really understand what your message is and all the various ways that you can thread that through the experience so that you deliver on it multiple times and it becomes a key takeaway. And honestly, we see people really overcomplicate this and think that people are going to walk away from a 4 or 5 day conference understanding 12 or 15 things. And we tried very hard to get them to understand people's capacity for learning and comprehension and the fact that they probably are only going to remember 3 things. So how do we get those 3 things wrapped into a theme, and how do we intertwine that theme through every touch point that we have, not only digitally, but in the real world, in keynotes, breakouts, experiential learning modules. Most importantly, I think networking is a huge value proposition, but really understanding the message and how to channel that through the whole event.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, I think, one of the things that we look at is from every touch point, from the very first email they receive about the invite through the first time they walk in the door, every touch point is going to mirror whatever messaging we're trying to get through. We look at navigational signage and window graphics and all kinds of different interesting signage ways to really hone in on that message.
And digital apps and really small things as well.
Yep.
So that leads us, now we know a couple things. We know the value proposition, we know the audience we're talking to, we know the message that we want to convey to them, and then I think the most important piece of work that we do is we map out to granular detail, to great amount of details, the consumer journey. And consumer journeys are a little bit challenging, especially when you're pitching them to a client, because they're tough to talk about chronologically, because you're in a keynote, then you're at an evening welcome party, then you're in another breakout, then you're at a gala. So we like to bucket them up a little bit. And this is an example where we talk about framing the content, where we're actually producing stuff like this right now, where I'm speaking to you and giving you content. But then we talk about personalized service. And personalized service are those friction-free moments that you come away with really memorable experiences at a conference. So registration is a great example. People are terrified of registration. They hate lines. They've just got off a plane. They need to get their phone with a new SIM card or their computer isn't working. So how do we pre-register? How do we get people through registration? How do we make that the first impression so people are really comfortable and know that I'm going to be taken well care of while I'm at this conference? And, there's guest room drops, there's amenities, there's all kind of things that tell you subliminally and, really that you're going to be very well taken care of with amenities. And the last thing are kind of building connections. Not the last thing, probably one of the most important things is building connections. I think the unique value proposition of peer-to-peer and knowing a guy that's got my same business challenges and I can find out how he's solving solutions, hopefully from the brand who's hosting this, and then network at evening events, and network at meals, and network at driving connection, networking opportunities where we get them talking to each other. So the consumer journey is the next step in that process, and our clients really love that we approach it this way, and I hope that you do as well.
So if we've done that whole attendee journey, and we've done our audience mapping, and we know the audience careabouts, and we know all of these different touch points, right? We look at all of these interesting little opportunities to create high-touch experiences. Again, thinking back to most of our clients' workspaces, we have micro kitchens everywhere. We've got coffee bars where you can get it at any time while you're at a location. There's flavored water in the back of the general session room. We have really interesting seating, and we kind of create these spaces for people to have meetings and conversations. There's charging stations everywhere. There are bathroom amenities. I could have a whole long list of the things that we do that just go that extra mile because that is what they're used to when they're in their workspace every day.
We've even created photo booths so you can get a new profile picture for LinkedIn or whatever. And we also take care of little touches that you might not even consciously be aware of. We make sure that the ballroom doors are WD-40 so they don't squeak while the presenters are presenting and are distracting. So those elevated experiences and those high-touch engagements really make a conference memorable for the guest and drive face-to-face interaction offside the digital plane.
Yeah, and just a great example, if you've ever done this, I found it really effective when we had color-coded badges. When we've got verticals, everything from e-commerce to retail to automotive, right? And you could look across the room and you could see the color of a badge from somebody that you wanted to talk to. Amazing how effective that is in networking in such a small thing.
We also are doing stuff with, RFID technology and, people that haven't met each other, make sure that they have badging and different ways to like locate one another. Whatever we can do to drive networking, it's working for the audience.
Right, and we've heard people talk about tribes and people want that personal connection. Build in time into your agenda so that people aren't running from event to event to event. Create time for people to actually connect while they're at your event.
And create activities.
Yes, exactly.
So we like to also encourage creative problem solving. And this takes some brainstorming. It really takes knowing your audience to know what kind of things they want to do. But we have found that in the last couple of years, people don't just want to be spoken to from a keynote stage, and then they don't want to go into smaller breakout groups and be spoken to again. So we really put a lot of thought into creating problems for people to solve. And we've done activities like labs and whiteboarding sessions and, especially with tech clients who think that way, who like to move fast and break things and, see how they can learn from putting it back together. And then also understanding that you've got peers, you've got people with your own challenges that you share. And if you get two people in a room and give them the same challenge to solve for, they all of a sudden have these epiphanies that are more difficult to deliver from a stage.
Yeah, and think about putting engineers with marketers. You'd actually come up with some really interesting problem-solving opportunities when you get disparate groups together and facilitate those engagement experiences. So everybody loves sponsorship, right? We all need sponsorship to keep our events moving forward. So we like to look at sponsorship as a way to just create a really relevant and engaging opportunity. We look at a brand and we look at the partners they want to bring in and where are the brand attributes that we can really connect our audience to. We just did an event in Silicon Valley and Fitbit was one of the sponsors. If you look at this booth, this is not a typical booth. We really looked at ways that we could bring Fitbit into that experience in a much more meaningful way. In another space, there was actually a Fitbit treadmill. And people were competing throughout the course of the 3 or 4 days during the conference and actually win something because, they had participated with the Fitbit booth. So that was a really great way to create a really strong engagement. And then you get the ROI and you get the connection. It's a little bit more interesting than just putting somebody up on stage for a keynote luncheon.
And all of our sponsor partners are looking for the unique value proposition of a conference too. Otherwise, why do they want to invest and why do they want to be there? And so by creating unique sponsorship opportunities, we give them an audience that the conference delivers.
Yep.
And then obviously everybody talks about this, every single presentation we've talked about this today, but figure out how to measure everything. And we build in measurement metrics when we start designing the program. We do them digitally, we do them qualitatively through observation. We audit all our programs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my team actually does internal and external audits. So we help our production teams build post-event reports that go out to the client, but we always still do a ton of internal auditing. Number one, we want to do better for our clients next year, and we want to take that internal learning. We want to look at our vendors, we want to look at our relationships, our communication styles, how do we work with the client, everything that we're doing to drive a better experience for next year, better experience for our clients that we work with. We literally measure everything, and I can actually say, I know how many pounds of bacon we served at that event for the client who loves bacon.
They loved that we measured it.
They love that.
So we've got 5 key takeaways.
Yep. So we think B2B events can actually be really sexy. We think that if you take a BDC lens and you kind of go that extra mile, a conference doesn't have to be boring, doesn't have to be just sitting in front watching a bunch of speakers. You can actually take a really, an engaging approach and make it a lot of fun.
It's not about them. It's not about you, it's about them. Every point in the attendee journey should be designed to create value for your guests. And it really is about them. Like, they're coming from all over the world many times. They're paying to get there. They're taking 4 days off work that they're going to have to catch up on their email. So really thinking through every single step of that attendee journey and making them feel welcome and that the value proposition is appropriate and they're going to walk away learning something they didn't know before, meeting a friend, and being able to keep that connection going, not only with that community, but with the brand.
Yep. Somebody mentioned surprise and delight earlier, and we look for all of those opportunities to do that. Like I said, bacon when you wouldn't expect it, or flavored water when you wouldn't expect it, bathroom amenities, all of those little things that just made people go, wow, this was a really great experience. And I heard somebody mention recently, you're not necessarily judged against your competition, you're judged against the last experience someone had. So that could be, you know, they went to a movie theater and they had a really great experience. It could be a different event. It could be something entirely different than an event. But you're being judged by all of the experiences that they are engaging in.
Work with your sponsors to create relevant brand experiences that engage your guests and deliver ROI for your sponsors.
Yep. And then finally, your attendees are people. So design for things that you would enjoy. Think about, you know, if I was walking through a space and I was thirsty, where would I want water to be? What would I need in the bathroom? You know, just think through some of these things and you really will make a much more positive impression. People are going to want to come back. They're going to be engaged more. They're just going to be much more open to learning and opportunity and engagement. And, you know, your money is very well spent.
And they're going to talk about it.
Yes,
So
exactly.
thank you for letting us talk to you and have a great afternoon.
Thanks.